It's Thursday. It's the 26th of June. I'm Moon Gan-young. This is ARIRANG News live from Seoul. Our top stories today. President Park Geun-hye decides to retain the country's current prime minister after two possible replacements for the job both abandoned their nominations because of questions over past behavior. After a 6-month hiatus amid rising cross-border tensions, the two Koreas resumed talks on managing the Kaesong Joint Industrial Park. And World Cup at a glance. We have all the action from day 14 and a look ahead at the big day. It's all or nothing for Team Korea. Even if they can't pull off a miracle win and push through to the next round, millions of supporters here in Korea will be looking for a good showing to restore lost pride. We'll have those stories and more, but first, let us begin right here in this country. After seeing her last two prime minister nominees bow out before getting anywhere near a confirmation hearing, President Park Geun-hye has decided against naming a third and will instead retain current Prime Minister Chung Hong-won. Our correspondent Choi You-sun has the details.
In a surprise announcement on Thursday, the presidential office said President Park had rejected Prime Minister Chung Hong-won's previous offer to resign and asked him to continue working for the nation with a sense of duty. Prime Minister Chung had expressed a wish to step down in the wake of the Sewol-ho ferry accident 2 months ago. It's the first time in Korea's constitutional history that a prime minister will be staying on after rendering a resignation. The presidential press secretary said President Park, who was promised a massive restructuring of the government and a bolstering of the national safety system following April's ferry tragedy, went through great pains before making the latest decision.
The administrative vacuum and division of public opinion intensified due to the previous nominations. The president has decided the situation can no longer be left alone.
In regards to the presidential office's personnel verification system, which has been heavily criticized after the recent back-to-back nominee withdrawals, a new senior secretary will be put in charge of finding people to fill positions and verifying their credentials. Upon Thursday's announcement, the Prime Minister vowed to pour all his energy into correcting irregularities in Korean society and making the country a safer place to live. He also said when necessary, he would not hesitate to offer his views to the president on state matters. The ruling party said the president's decision was understandable and that she had put a priority on minimizing the administrative vacuum and moving forward with the running of state affairs. The main opposition, on the other hand, criticized the administration for failing to meet the people's expectations to reform Korean society in the aftermath of the ferry disaster. Choi You-sun, ARIRANG News.
Meanwhile, Korea's Ministry of National Defense submitted a 2015 defense budget proposal to the Finance Ministry on this Thursday. Well, the request comes to a little over 38 trillion won. That's roughly $37.3 billion US, which is up 7.5% from this year's budget. The military plans to use $25.5 billion of the total to maintain and enhance military fighting capabilities, while some $11.5 billion would go toward defense development, including missile systems. The military also aims to enhance life in the barracks for conscript soldiers by increasing their salaries by up to 15%. Inter-Korean talks on ways to improve the Kaesong industrial complex are currently underway in the North Korean border city of Kaesong. The meeting is the first in about 6 months, and some are taking it as a sign of thawing cross-border relations. Our Hwang Sang-hee reports.
For the first time in 6 months, officials from the two Koreas met for talks to discuss matters related to their jointly run Kaesong industrial complex. The quarterly meeting of the Joint Committee of the Business Park has been at a standstill since December last year, when inter-Korean relations soured following military drills between Seoul and Washington. Departing for Kaesong on Thursday morning, the South Korean delegation said the meeting was an opportunity to review how far they've come with the normalization of the business park.
As the meeting comes after a long time, it will serve as an opportunity to inspect the tasks of developing and normalizing the complex.
Key issues up for discussion include the installment of internet connection and the implementation of an electronic entry system to facilitate South Korean workers' commute in and out of the complex. The Kaesong complex, which opened in the early 2000s, is one of the last remaining symbols of inter-Korean cooperation. With some 50,000 North Koreans working for more than 120 South Korean factories, operations at the complex are greatly influenced by the state of inter-Korean ties. Last year, the factory zone sat idle for 5 months after North Korea unilaterally closed it down amid escalating tensions on the Korean peninsula. Some say Thursday's talks could be seen as a sign of Pyongyang's willingness to try and thaw the current icy relations between the two Koreas. Hwang Sang-hee, ARIRANG News.
Japan and North Korea will hold another round of talks next week to work out the details of an agreement reached late last month. Japanese Foreign Minister Fumio Kishida said Wednesday that the two sides will sit down on July 1st in Beijing, where North Korean officials will explain how a special committee plans to reinvestigate the abductions of Japanese nationals in the 1970s and 80s. Well, Tokyo hopes the probe extends to all North Korean institutions. Now, under the terms of the agreement, Japan will ease certain sanctions on the North once that investigation kicks off. U.S. lawmaker has denounced Japan for denying its historical wrongdoings. Chairman of the U.S. House Foreign Affairs Committee Ed Royce made the comments before meeting with visiting Korean Vice Foreign Minister Cho Tae-yong on Wednesday. Now, Royce said it was important that Japan and others learn from history so as not to repeat the mistakes of the past. Well, he said that one of the most important lessons was to admit, referencing Tokyo's recent review of the Kono Statement, which, of course, acknowledged the Japanese military had forced women into sexual servitude during World War II. Now, although the Japanese government upheld that statement, it claimed there was no evidence to support the claims of the former sex slaves. Cho said he appreciated Royce's support and that it sent a strong signal to those who are trying to rewrite history. The world's largest international maritime exercise, dubbed RIMPAC, begins on this Thursday off the coast of Hawaii. And this year it has an added edge. China, for the first time, will be joining the U.S.-led naval drills. Experts are saying this shows that neither Washington nor Beijing want their military-to-military relations to deteriorate. Our Shin Se-min has more.
For the first time ever, Chinese naval ships will be firing gunshots off the coast of Hawaii inside U.S. maritime territory as part of multi-nation naval drills. The biannual naval exercise, dubbed RIMPAC, begins Thursday with a total of 23 countries taking part. 4 Chinese ships, including a missile destroyer and more than 1,000 Chinese military personnel, are already in Hawaii. The exercises come amid tensions as Beijing continues to assert itself in its maritime disputes in the East and South China Seas, while Washington seeks to reinforce its influence in the Asia-Pacific region. U.S.-China relations have also been strained by U.S. claims of cyber espionage by Beijing. China rejects Washington's accusations. The U.S. government says it invited China as a means to ease tensions and boost naval cooperation between the two countries. In a recent report to Congress, the Pentagon said it would continue to monitor China's evolving military strategy, doctrine, and force development while building the foundations of a stronger military-to-military relationship with Beijing. China's attitude towards the U.S. has softened with the invite. In the run-up to the drills, China's deputy naval commander stressed the importance of the world's 2 superpowers establishing stronger military ties. Shin Se-min, ARIRANG News.
Well, not a day goes by without some good or bad football action from Brazil, and day 14 of the games was no exception. Our sports correspondent Song Ji-sun is again standing by to ensure we don't miss out on anything. Now, Ji-sun, we're already halfway through the 2014 World Cup, and we'll be seeing some more teams packing their bags from this point on, right?
2 weeks have already passed since the 2014 World Cup kicked off in Brazil, and only half the teams can remain to play on at this point. We often see football superstars struggle at the World Cup, either because their national team don't have the skills to back them up, or they just get stage fright. This year, though, we're seeing one footballer cement himself as a legend of the game. Now, who else could we be talking about but Lionel Messi? The pin-side striker scored a great goal after just 3 minutes against Nigeria to give Argentina an early 1-0 lead. But Nigeria's Ahmed Musa equalized just a minute after, cutting the Argentinian fan celebration short. Both strikers added another, but Argentina takes this one as Rojo sealed 3-2 victory with a goal in the second half. Scoring in all 3 group matches, Messi now shares the top scorer spot with Brazil's Neymar with 4 goals from 3 matches. Despite the loss, Nigeria advances to the next round as Iran lost 3-1 to Bosnia-Herzegovina. France drew 0-0 against Ecuador, quitting the next round with their European neighbor, Switzerland. Now only 4 spots remain in the last 16. These spots will be filled by the end of this evening in Brazil, kicking off with Group G at 1 p.m. local time. With Germany and the U.S. leading the group with 4 points each, they can both move on to the next round by just drawing the match. But Portugal will be hoping that they don't, so they can sneak to the next knockout stage with a strong win against Ghana. Korean football fans will once again gather on the streets to cheer on the squad for Korea's last group match at 5 a.m. on a Friday morning, Seoul time. With Belgium already in the final 16, the window is open for 3 countries in Group H. So what do Korea need to do? They need a comprehensive victory against Belgium and for Russia to beat or draw against Algeria, so it's going to be very, very tough. But head coach Hong Myung-bo is unlikely to make many changes to the team that lost to Algeria earlier. He told reporters that he will most likely select under-fire striker Park Geun-hye, who has been struggling in Brazil in the first 11. The phrase he repeated over and over was that his players would do their best. But on the other hand, the Belgium coach is resting his star men since they're already through. Let's hear what the players have to say.
We have one last group match. That's all we are thinking about. We are trying our best to give it all that we can, without too much pressure.
We're winning our matches, but we aren't yet at 100%. That will come with time. We'll play better, gain confidence, and win matches in style.
Well, we'll see which of these players stepped off the pitch at Arena Corinthians in Sao Paulo in the early hours of Friday morning Korea time with a big smile on their faces. Let's hope it's Korea. And that was your look at today's World Cup actions, and I'll see you back here with more from Brazil 2014.
All of the day's important events close to home and around the world. Join Moon Gon-yong live from Seoul.
Mobile shopping market for the dual use of the Korean name East Sea and Japanese name Sea of Japan in school textbooks in the state of Virginia. Now, shifting our focus to the economy, Korea's corporate profitability improved in the first quarter of this year on the back of the nation's moderate economic recovery. But the outlook for the second quarter remains bleak. Our correspondent Hwang Ji-hye explains why.
In the first 3 months of this year, Korean companies seem to be weathering economic uncertainties at home and abroad rather well, reflecting the nation's moderate recovery track during the period. Korea's central bank says that corporate profitability improved in the first quarter of this year from a year earlier, with profit margins reaching 5.2% in the January to March period, up from 4.8%. That means companies are now getting 52 cents in profit out of every $100 in sales, whereas they earned 48 cents in the previous year. Profit margin improved across all industries, save for the shipbuilding sector, with the electronics and automobile sectors leading the gain. The central bank says, however, that the upbeat trend might not continue on through the second quarter. That is because of the ferry disaster in April that resulted in the further denting of already sluggish private spending. For a glimpse at the pace of recovery in the second quarter of this year, pundits are waiting for May figures, which will give a better indication of whether the impact of the disaster is temporary or more long-term. Hwang Ji-hye, ARIRANG News.
Now, it's not only ballooning household debt that's adding to the burden of mid-income families in this country. Wages grew at the slowest pace in more than 2 years in the first quarter of the year. Well, data from the Bank of Korea shows that real wages came to an average of around $2,900 per person in the first 3 months. Now, although that's up 1.8% from the same period last year, it is the smallest jump since the fourth quarter of 2011. Now, this means it could take time for domestic demand to recover fully. The real wage growth represents the income growth of an employee working in a firm with 5 or more workers after taking into account the effect of inflation. Now, which country does the most good for the planet? Well, it isn't South Korea, at least not according to a new survey. The Good Country Index, created by independent policy advisor Simon Anholt, measured 125 countries based on their contributions to humanity using data from the United Nations, the World Bank, and other global institutions. Well, South Korea came in at number 47 on the list, boosted by its contributions to science, technology, and culture, but pulled down by poor marks in international peace and security. Ireland ranked number 1 in the index, followed by Finland and Switzerland, while Libya, Vietnam, and Iraq brought up the rear. North Korea was not included on the list. From actors and sportsmen to government officials and researchers, dozens of people from around the world have been invited by Korea's Culture Ministry to build a global network by taking part in the Cultural Partnership Initiative. Our correspondent Park Ji-won tells us more.
80 people from 40 different countries will explore Korea for the next 5 months as part of the Cultural Partnership Initiative program run by the nation's Culture Ministry. Participants will spend that time at 16 different host organizations, including the National Theater of Korea and the National Kugak Center. Participants will take part in diverse activities from performance to research.
As a Taekwondo player, instructor, and a coach in my country, this is a very good opportunity because Korea is the main part of the Taekwondo, heart of the Taekwondo, especially Kukiwon, and I'm really happy to be here as a CPI member.
I'm a theatrical performer. I make sound with my body, sound effect, for example, and I play talking drum as well, traditional drum. I believe I'm going to explore so much in in South Korea.
I came to Korea for research Korean music and culture, and next 5 months I will be in Jeonju at Intangible Cultural Heritage Center for Pacific and Asia region.
Since 2005, nearly 900 people have participated in the annual cultural exchange program. It aims to enrich cultural diversity and build networks among global experts through the sharing of their own cultures. Park Ji-won, ARIRANG News.
And now it's time for a look at the arts and culture scene with our Im Yoon-hee. She joins us live for a look at a different kind of festival. Good afternoon to you, Yoon-hee.
Good afternoon.
So you have a film festival using these smartphones, right?
Exactly. So this is actually the 4th International Ole Smartphone Film Festival. Now it first started in 2011, shortly after a first theater-released short film using only the iPhone was released, and that was actually produced by 2 Korean brothers. And now since then, the festival has grown on to be the biggest smartphone film festival in the world. Now, 2 directors were asked what they thought about smartphone films, and take a look at their response.
감독님에게 스마트폰 영화란?
그 스마트폰 영화라는 게 뭐 그냥
뭐 아무나 찍는 거지 뭐 이렇게 누르면 되는 거 아니야?
지금 뭐 하는 거야 지금?
Just like he said, now anyone with a smartphone can make a movie. This year marks the 4th Ole International Smartphone Film Festival, a new type of festival perfect for today's smartphone-driven world. It's a competition of short films, And the only requirement is a smartphone. The jury will be led by Roo Seung-won, director of the hit films The Berlin File and Crying Fist, as they judge short film entries from around the world. There are 5 special awards to be won this year, including one main award. There's even an award for the funniest video in the competition. The smartphone has brought movie making into the grasps of the general public.
내가 너 많이 좋아해.
야, 태성이 어디 갔어?
형동이요. 영화 찍고 뭐 하세요?
아, 지금 찍고 있잖아.
잠시만요. 봐.
It's a festival meant to encourage the imagination and the use of something today's society has become quite adept at using.
So basically, this is something virtually anybody can participate in.
Exactly.
The short clips that we just saw, are they entries from previous years?
So these entries are actually from experienced directors, and so they wanted to really encourage this year's participants to come out and submit videos. And so you can submit videos to them starting July 1st, so right around the corner, until August 14th. So plenty of time for you to submit. And last year they actually saw 700 applications, and that's the highest they've ever seen. So it's a growing festival. So a lot of applicants, but they're also excited to see a lot of videos.
Right. I mean, I'm no filmmaker, but I even have an application or two that I can make movies with. So this is something very general these days. What are the different categories that we can apply?
So there are 2 sections. There's a short film section that's anything under 10 minutes, and another extreme short film section that's anything under 1 minute. So very short, but people get very creative with this section as well. And so there's also a cash prize to be won, but including a youth award. And they really want to encourage the younger generations to participate and to use their creativity. So many of the kids nowadays have smartphones, so it's easy to go around and take a video of what you're walking around and see, and then film, and then to share it with the public.
Right, and it's a great way for everyone to discover new talents by these film festivals. Now, I'm sure they won't come short of the applications, but where will they be screening these films?
So the juries will choose a selection of films, and they will be screening those at the Mega Box in Gangnam. And so you can catch them there. But they really are expecting quite a large number of films this year, and they're really excited, and there's plenty of time for you to submit your application. So they're encouraging everyone to participate.
Right. Well, maybe you and I should try out as
Exactly.
well.
Take a video of this year.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for today, and we will see you next week.
See you then.
Good afternoon. It's another cloudy day here. However, we can expect more monsoon rain over on Jeju Island today and tomorrow, with up to 20 millimeters in the forecast. And although it's cloudy, temperatures are expected to rise even higher than yesterday, all the way up to the 30s and for some regions. And with that, UV levels are pretty up high as well, so try not to stay out too long. And as for the weather conditions over in Brazil at the World Cup, the weather seems to be getting hotter day by day. Continuous rain is also in the forecast in some regions. Now going over to our temperature readings, Seoul will top out at 29 this afternoon. Meanwhile, the southern cities such as Gwangju and Busan will peak up to 30 and 26 degrees. And moving over to other regions, Jeju Island tops over to 23, Dokdo at 24, while Mangungang tops also at 23. Well, that's all for now. I'm Michelle Park, and here's a look at the weather conditions around the world.
Well, that's just about all from me at this hour. I'm Moon Gun-hye. Check back with us at 4 p.m. Korea time for Business Today.